Haunted by visions of a future seemingly destined to be, Captain Christopher Pike returns to duty, leading the USS Enterprise on a mission to rescue a missing crew member in the series premiere of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. But what happened? What did I like? And what didn't I like? Before I get into this recap and review, please note this video contains spoilers, so if you've not yet seen the series premiere of Strange New Worlds, this might not be the video for you. Let's warp into this. On the alien world of Kiley 279, personnel at a modern Earth-like military bunker watch in awe as they come into contact with what they describe as a UFO, which is soon revealed to be a Federation starship. Back on Earth, Christopher Pike is enjoying some extended shore leave with fellow Captain Patel, who wonders why Pike is avoiding Starfleet's calls. Clearly still struggling in the wake of learning his fate, Pike brushes aside Patel's concerns. Later, whilst riding through snowy Montana, Pike is intercepted by Admiral Robert April, who orders Pike to return to the Enterprise to lead a mission to rescue Una, his number one, who has been captured following a first contact mission gone wrong. A strong and confident start for Star Trek's newest show. Una's voiceover at the beginning is a tad clotted, but it's more than made up for with an intriguing visual sequence showing first contact from the other side. We've seen this before in TNG's 4th season episode, the appropriately titled First Contact, but the sheer wonder and excitement missing from that episode is delivered here, and it's palpable. Pike's reintroduction here is snappy and fun and doesn't waste time reminding us of the character's unique and very undesirable position. I loved the reference to The Day the Earth Stood Still, which was one of Gene Roddenberry's all-time favourite movies and was also directed by Robert Wise, who would go on of course to direct the motion picture. A very lovely touch. On Vulcan, Spock is spending his shore leave with his mate T'Pring, who proposes to him at dinner. Their evening is interrupted, however, when Pike contacts Spock, informing him of their new mission. T'Pring is visibly frustrated by the development, at odds with her love for Spock and her disapproval of his career in Starfleet. Spock, nevertheless, is duty-bound to leave for the Enterprise. Uh-oh. Someone better call the cannon police. T'Pring and Spock were arranged to be married from birth. In the classic TOS episode Amok Time, we learn the two haven't seen each other since childhood. So what we see here is clearly at odds with what we know, and I don't like that. T'Pring is set to be a regular on the show, so perhaps we'll get some reason for this down the line, but the only thing I can imagine is some sort of we won't mention it, just like we won't mention Discovery kind of crap to cover it up. Wouldn't it have just been easier to, I don't know, invent a new character for Spock to get jiggy with? No? Returning to the Enterprise, Pike is greeted by Spock, and on the bridge the captain meets helmsman Lieutenant Erica Ortegas, prodigious junior communications officer Nyota Uhura, and Una's replacement as number one, Lieutenant Leon Noonien Singh. Pike orders the Enterprise out of dry dock to begin their mission, but his confidence momentarily falters when he sees a vision of his disfigured future self in the panel of his armrest. In his quarters, Pike confides in Spock, revealing to his Vulcan science officer the vision he saw on Borif, a vision of a fate he seemingly cannot escape. Pike confesses that the experience changed his perception on life and death, leading him to question his life and career in Starfleet. Spock offers counsel, suggesting Pike take the knowledge of his fate and use it to benefit him and his crew in the now. From the stardate at the start of this episode, we know the show picks up in 2259. This puts strain on Pike, telling Spock his life-altering incident is a decade away. By 2269, Kirk and Spock have already delivered Pike to see out the rest of his life with the Telosians. This kind of writing is annoying, especially given the show's strong start and the inclusion of franchise deep cuts like Robert April. Pike and Spock's interaction here, however, is wonderfully Trekkian. I found myself impressed by Ethan Peck, particularly in his early scenes. Peck appears very good at approximating the subtle mannerisms and vocal delivery of the iconic Leonard Nimoy. Consider me a fan of this version of the character, even if his backstory is being retconned before our very eyes. The Enterprise arrives at Kiley 279, where the crew discovers the USS Archer, the ship seen by the Kiley earlier, adrift in orbit, its 3-man crew unaccounted for. Leon detects strange readings from the planet's surface and recommends the activation of ship's defenses. Spock objects, but Leon is resolute. Pike sides with his interim number one, and the shields are raised just as a barrage of missiles from the planet attacks the ship. The missiles cause relatively little damage to the crew's surprise and relief. Spock determines that the civilization on the planet isn't yet warp capable. Discovering the Kiley have somehow instead created a warp bomb, putting the planet and its population in imminent danger. What is a warp bomb? From what we know, the first human warp propulsion system started off as a nuclear missile. So is it just a nuclear missile? Why not just say that? Bit of a sidebar here, but this is probably the best time for me to get a little nerdy. I'm not sure why the writers have chosen the name Kiley, but it is a name shared with the late great Richard Kiley, who incidentally appeared in Deep Space Nine's second season episode Second Sight as Dr. Gideon Saitik. Coincidence it may be, but it's a cool connection anyway, and it gives me a good excuse to include some Deep Space Nine footage. Pike, Spock and Leanne head to Dr. M'Benga, who along with Nurse Chapel alters their genome so they can assume the Kiley form to rescue Una and the crew of the Archer without breaching General Order Number 1. Leanne refuses to be sedated for the painful looking procedure, insisting on a need to always be alert. The away team beams to the planet's surface where they quickly infiltrate the Kiley's military base by knocking out 2 scientists who they beam to the Enterprise to remain sedated. The mission soon runs into complications, however, as Spock's Kiley disguise begins to unravel. M'Benga attempts to stabilize Spock with the genes of one of their unconscious alien guests, but one of the aliens awakens and flees sickbay. Nurse Chapel gives chase, but it's Uhura who saves the day, calming the panicked alien with a chat about one of the planet's popular sports, allowing Chapel to quickly recapture the alien. A lot happens here, but it's mostly good, with several characters like Ortegas, Chapel and M'Benga all getting time to shine. It's great to see Star Trek remember how to serve an ensemble once again, and long may it continue. A highlight of this sequence was Uhura, who really showed her pedigree as a bright young talent in a moment reminiscent of how quickly Nichelle Nichols' character took to the civilization in the TOS episode Bread and Circuses. Her conversation with the Kiley also reminded me of the Doctor's enthusiastic conversation with Daniel Day Kim's character in Voyager's awesome episode Blink of an Eye. Nice callbacks, but repurposed here to great effect. Back at the alien base, the away team rescue Una and the crew of the Archer. Una reveals to Pike that the Kiley developed the warp bomb after witnessing the Enterprise and Discovery's massive battle with Control a year prior. This battle, in Una's words, lit up the Kiley sky, allowing the civilization's scientists to reverse engineer warp technology. The tie into Discovery's second season was pretty neat and adds extra value to that episode if you ever decide to rewatch it. I probably won't. I do want to know, however, how a pre-warp civilization could create a new technology just by looking at a ship through a telescope. Like how? How is that even possible? Feeling a greater sense of responsibility than before, Pike disregards General Order 1, revealing himself to the leader of the Kiley in an attempt to warn them of the dangers of using the technology they've developed. The leader, however, is dismissive, telling Pike discussion and diplomacy pales to the importance of having the biggest stick. Frustrated but undeterred, Pike orders the Enterprise into low orbit, forcing the leader into a more peaceful approach at the sight of his much larger stick, which is now very visible in the Kiley sky. Back on the Enterprise in the conference room, Pike, Spock and Leanne watch as the Kiley leaders continue to bicker. Leanne remarks that not believing you're going to die is what gets you killed, which echoes similar words said by Pike. Leanne tells Pike those words were said by her father, who along with her family were killed by the Gorn when she was a child. Inspired by the words and Leanne's story, and drawing on his own fears of the future, Pike returns to the Kiley, interrupting the leaders of the world, revealing Earth's fiery and fragmented pre-Federation history, drawing similarities between the two civilizations. Pike offers the Kiley an alternative to mutually assured destruction in the form of entry into the Federation. The Kiley seemingly accepts, and the population is seen learning about their new allies, the first in a vast intergalactic family. Oh wow, this was as strong a sequence as anything we've gotten from any Star Trek show in nearly 20 years. Pike's speech to the warring Kiley was just what we needed from this show. No phasers, no fistfights, no swearing or yum-yums. This was a representative of an aspirational human future reaching out in friendship and with wise words to the inhabitants of a strange new world. This is Star Trek. In this scene, the aliens are us, the viewers, watching in a time where we find ourselves more divided and at odds with each other than ever before. Regardless of your personal politics, however you felt about this show's use of politics, try and put that aside for a second and really think about what Pike was saying here. Honestly, I refuse to accept that a Akiva Goldsman, the guy responsible for Batman and Robin, wrote this scene. The sequence works on other levels too. The cinematography felt a little dull, as it did for most of this episode actually, but the shot selection worked, as did Nami Melomad's score, which accompanied the on-screen action in a far nicer fit than Jeff Russo's often overblown and intrusive work. All combined, this made for some real goosebump-inducing stuff, a feeling I've rarely experienced since Trek returned to the small screen. Hope springs eternal. Returning to Jupiter Station, Admiral April tells Pike and crew any charges for breaching General Order 1, which is now known as the Prime Directive, have been waived due to the still classified nature behind the Kiley's attainment of warp technology. Pike decides to remain in Starfleet as the captain of the Enterprise, with Una also returning to her former position as his number 1. Leanne completes the senior crew roster, with Pike offering her the position of Chief of Security. Samuel Kirk, newly posted on the Enterprise as part of Spock's team, joins them on the bridge as the Enterprise heads out on their new mission to go boldly where no one has gone before. A tidy conclusion which evokes memories of classic Star Trek. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm actually excited to rewatch a new episode of Star Trek. The inclusion of Sam Kirk was a bit odd though, a weird tease planted earlier in the episode that kinda just felt surplus here. Strange New Worlds does what all half-decent first episodes should always do, give us a glimpse at the show's raw potential. This was a confident but very busy maiden voyage, packed to the rafters with stuff, but not once did I ever feel overwhelmed by what we were getting here. Characters outside the power trio, with the exception of Hemmer, who we did still see here, were given moments to shine, and shine they did indeed. Was it a perfect hour of television? No, I don't think so. Continued changes to what we know remain jarring. A visual reboot is fine by me. After all, it would look weird for the crew to sit on the same old rickety sets from the 60s. That's not the problem, and the show's retro-futuristic aesthetic is actually a nice attempt to better blend with what we know is to come. I'm more concerned here by changes to characters, dates, and relationships. The things that contradict classic Star Trek. It doesn't need to happen. There's still plenty of time and sand in this sandbox. I also want to address what will probably be a hot button issue, which is the casting of a black man to play Robert April. Now, this doesn't bother me. The character has plenty of non-canon appearances, and yes, he does appear in an episode of the animated series as the whitest dude of all time, but it's not really a big deal. It's not to me anyway. I liked Adrian Holmes' casting and appearance, but I probably would have gone for someone a little older, someone like Tony Todd, who would have been my personal choice. The potential recasting of an Asian man to play Transporter Chief Kyle is a bit of a different story, however, as this character has had plenty of appearances in TOS and also appears in The Wrath of Khan. Now, am I going to cancel Paramount Plus for this? No, I'm not. It's entirely possible that this is actually a different Transporter Chief Kyle, but honestly, what are the odds of that happening? Changing the gender or ethnicity of a character is hardly new, and in some cases works really well, with Battlestar Galactica's Starbuck and Boomer, my personal favourite examples. However, the powers that currently run Star Trek insist this isn't a reboot, and is taking place in the same universe established nearly 60 years ago. Changes like this ensure better representation for talented actors who deserve to be showcased, yes, but this will inevitably come at the cost of some fans continuing to refuse to accept the show as legitimate. Strange New Worlds marks the return of a lighter, more optimistic Star Trek, one that won't be a slave to the longer, seasonal arcs that have weighed down shows like Discovery or Picard. It wasn't perfect. I suspect more glowing reviews are coming more as a result of fans starved of quality, but it was a solid opener, one that sets the stage for something that could become very special. I'm giving Strange New Worlds 3.5 stars out of 5. But what did you think of this episode? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Star Trek reviews, recaps, lore, theories and more coming soon. Until next time, I'm the Trek Lad. Live long and prosper.